Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Welcome back, friends. Today we're sitting at Colab Eau Claire in downtown, not very far away from my store. You've probably heard me shout out Colab quite a few times. It's on the radio every Sunday. I talk about it. My friend Adam here hit me up a while ago. He's been following the show forever, so this is how I get sponsors. I just have friends of mine that listen, and they're like, this is cool. How do I get involved? So anyways, we're here. Welcome to the show, Adam Accola.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Dude, where are we? This is Colab. Tell me a little bit about Colab.
Yeah, so Colab is a co-working space. So, I mean, a lot of people have probably heard of WeWork or Regis, our two kind of national brands. But Colab is an indie co-working space, independently owned and operated here in Eau Claire. For those of you from Eau Claire, we're part of Pablo Group. So that's a pretty popular name that some people have heard. But essentially, we function like a gym for your business. And so you pay a monthly membership fee, and you get to use our office as your office. You can bring clients here. You can have meetings. You can just get work done. We have 2 conference rooms, lots of desk space, private offices, so lots of flexibility for specifically startups and entrepreneurs, but we've also got remote workers, nonprofits, all sorts of different people that like to get work done here.
What does the name Pablo come from? Everyone always asks about that. And somebody, I remember it, and I was like, that's not what it is. It was like, oh, Vernon's friends with Kanye and Life of Pablo album came out. I was like, that's not why it's called that. But what, why is it Pablo Group? Do you have any idea? I've always been curious.
Yeah, so Pablo Group, the name actually comes from Pablo Records. So okay. Pablo Records was a big jazz record producing agency back in the day. And so I can't remember. I had a whole spiel when I used to work at Pablo's Center, actually, and give tours. But they produced Dizzy Gillespie. They produced, oh gosh, I can't even remember all the big names that they produced, but lots of really good jazz greats. And one of our founders is Zach Halmstead from Jamf Software, and he's really into jazz, and so that name kind of just carried over. The record company, I believe, has ties to Pablo Picasso, so kind of going back a couple steps, but they really named the company after Pablo Records.
So I was I'm going on a tangent here. For some reason, when I think of Picasso, I think he's centuries ago. He isn't. I was in Europe. Well, I've been to Europe a few times, but every time I go to a museum and I look at it, it says birth and death. I don't remember what year he died, but not what 50 years ago, or was it in the 60s or something?
I can't remember exactly when he died.
But it was in the 1900s. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
Which is anyways, it just came up in my mind. But okay, so tell me a little bit more about yourself. Are you from here?
Yes. So I'm from Mondovi, Wisconsin. So.
Oh.
Exactly. Just right down the road, little town of 2,600 people. Might be a little bit more since I've graduated, but graduated there in 2011 and went to UW Eau Claire, got a degree in vocal music and minors in Spanish and the health professions and Latin American studies, and have just kept finding opportunities here in Eau Claire. So it's been really great kind of finding these opportunities that I didn't necessarily know existed, because I always thought that I would be out of here. Even after high school, I thought that I'd be out of here. Yeah. And the university was just a good fit for what I wanted to do. And then opportunities just kept presenting themselves here.
So vocal, you wanted to sing? Or what is it you wanted to do in the music realm?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily have a specific focus that I wanted to do musically. I never really envisioned myself some people go to school and they're like, oh, I want to be on Broadway or I want to sing opera. But I never really had that in mind. I just knew that I loved music. And I originally entered college as pre-med, and Eau Claire was the school that I could do pre-med with a music major, and then I minored in Spanish and the health professions.
Because you're going to do all 3 somewhere, right?
Yes. And I was thinking about connecting it in some way, potentially ear, nose, throat doctor, or dealing specifically with vocal health, being a sports medicine doctor for vocalists. And that just never really kind of materialized. Right. And I found myself drawn more into music. And it's now my side hustle. So I manage Colab during the day, and then at night I've got private voice students that I teach from 5 to 7 p.m., and then I music direct shows at the Eau Claire Children's Theater as well.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that about you. Well, yeah. That's dope. Okay, so when you graduate, what was you didn't get a job straight out of scholarship,
Nope.
Straight out of college with an internship or whatever? What was the first job that you took towards your eventual career?
I was a barista for the man at Starbucks.
Sick. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then I kind of got rolled into the music side of things. I was approached by a studio manager here in town, and I managed a music studio for a while. So I was doing that as kind of like a side gig while I was bartending and being a barista at Starbucks. Eventually moved to just doing that, and then that kind of connected me as Pablo Center, the art center in town, opened up. I got a call from my old boss asking if I wanted to bartend there, and then quickly moved up through the ranks and became a full-time employee in just a couple months.
Yeah, see, that's the funny thing is I tell people all the time when you're in college and stuff, like whatever you eventually want to do, just find a way to get in towards that, even if it's like totally the base level. Because a lot of these things, it really is relationships. Like I mean, yeah, you see on like the big scale, they'll hire a CEO that has nothing to do with this company or whatever, that happens. But a lot of times these people that have grown with the company that are staples within this, they actually did start at the bottom somewhere, not necessarily bartending, but they do start at some kind of an entry level position. And if you fit where that higher spot is, it doesn't necessarily take years. There isn't a lot of times with these, ones that aren't huge corporations, there aren't like all these stipulations that you have to follow. It's not like they can't, some of these bigger corporations, they have to wait until your review time comes for you to be eligible to be promoted or whatever. It really doesn't work that way on a smaller scale on something like Pablo. Pablo's been around for a while. When was it that it was founded? Do you know?
Pablo Group or Pablo Center?
Well, Pablo Group was first, right?
Yes. So Pablo Group was first. It essentially was formed to kind of hold some property that the founders owned at the time. And it was just basically holding the property. And then it grew into a little bit more managing some of the well-known establishments in town, like the Firehouse, the Lakely and Oxbow. That's newer though,
right? The Firehouse they acquired during the pandemic, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, same way with like Racy's and stuff?
Yep.
Yeah, but so earlier on, because Zach came up, Jamf just kind of like exploded, right? Mm-hmm. And he really quickly became a very established person in Eau Claire that thankfully isn't incredibly greedy and instead wanted to invest into this city. And everyone, I think, is extremely grateful to Zach for that. But who else is a part of the founding members? Is Nick part of that, or like who's a part of it?
Yeah, Nick Meyer from Volume 1 is one of the owners at Lakely and Oxbow, but he's not associated with Pablo like as a whole. Okay. And so it is, the three founders are Zach Halmstead, Jason Woody, and Julia Johnson. Okay.
And so that was formed when? Because I've been here this whole time since before you. I didn't realize I was older than you. Makes sense. I look older than you. But you look at the bags under my eyes, dude. That's the one tell. Sometimes people are like, are you 20? I get that. Where people are like, no way you're 32. And then I'm like, dude, just look here. You could tell I look really tired. But when I was growing up, I remember skating down here in like 2004, 2005 was when I was downtown every single day skateboarding, because so in 2004, I would have been 14. And I remember hearing about Volume 1 as like, oh, we got like a new magazine, but like it doesn't come out all the time. I don't, and I didn't really know much about it. It really didn't have like a huge presence. And that all kind of builded. Not that Volume 1 is directly attached to Pablo Group, but obviously like there's a lot of collaboration work things. And from my perspective, Volume 1 kind of came up and RCU built Phoenix Park.
Yep.
Right. And those two things, all of a sudden now having a big public outdoor place downtown, as well as having a downtown and public newspaper that was promoting local stuff, I think those were really like the things that clicked and started everything else to make Eau Claire kind of where it was. At what point was it that Pablo kind of became really like the third? Well, RCU did its thing and does, but really it changed to being then Volume 1 and Pablo, I think, that are like the two big forces as far as like helping everything that's going on. There's a million other people, but you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So when was it that they kind of came into the picture?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure exactly like when they started. I believe they kind of got Pablo management and things rolling around 2017, 2018. Colab in its current form opened in 2019. And Pablo management had been kind of in operation out of the old Colab space for about a year at that point.
And their first big property then the Lismore?
Lismore, actually, we just took ownership of in 2021, I want to say.
Oh, I thought I thought Pablo Group was a part of it from the beginning.
So they owned it, but they didn't manage it. So Pablo management now also manages the Lismore.
Sure. Okay, so tell me a bit about the Pablo Center and kind of like how that... Because, I mean, obviously the timing was horrible. It opened this huge center that was going to be like, and is one of the biggest draws to this city. And then the pandemic hit and it was a place for social gatherings. Now we can't have social gatherings. So it was just like incredibly horrible timing. But like, tell me a little bit about how that came to be and what its role was since you worked there.
Yeah. I always describe Pablo Center as like the XL Energy Center, or like Miller Park American Family Field, where Miller or American Family doesn't run the field that the Brewers play on. They are just the company that paid money to put their name on the stadium. And so that's just like Pablo Center. Pablo Properties at the time named the building. And so it's got the name Pablo, but it's independently run by an independent team, and Pablo management doesn't have anything to do with the operations of Pablo Center.
Oh, okay. So then how did the relationship happen with you as far as like working at the Pablo Center? How did that then transform into you getting in with Pablo Group to work at Colab? Like you bartended and you moved up, but if they're not like directly, how did that switch happen from working with them to working with Colab? Because were you with Colab from the very beginning of when it started?
No, I joined about 6 to 9 months in.
Okay.
My boss, Elaine, my current boss, was working with me at Pablo Center for a couple of months, and then she got her job as community manager of Colab. About 8 months after that, she had a position open up, and she approached me about it. I kind of hemmed and hawed over it. I'm like, I don't know if this is the right fit. Working in an arts center, I thought was exactly what I wanted to do my whole life. And not that I'm opposed to going back, but once I made the realization that this was a 9-to-5 job, and I could also then go do other things related to theater, related to music, and actually kind of pursue those passions instead of just facilitating an experience for guests to enjoy, it was kind of a no-brainer for me. And that's when the light switch kind of flicked, and I was like, all right, I'm going to Colab.
Yeah. Well, I mean, younger people, like this idea of a 9-to-5 sounds horrible, but as you get older, especially with me with kids and stuff, you start seeing the value of what a 9-to-5 gives you. And having a set schedule like that is great, which is funny because you see all these people, especially when you're young. A lot of people have a friend who starts bartending and they're like, man, my friend makes so much money. I'm like, yeah, but they're up until 3 a.m. every weekend.
And they're never available to hang out on the weekends.
They can't do anything when anyone else can do something, which is why people don't just bartend. Well, there are people that do, but is why it's not as popular as it could be, because financially you can definitely make some good money without a degree doing that. But at some point you're like, man, I would really like to have my weekends off because everybody else has weekends off. And especially if you have kids, like even me with my shop, I was open 10 to 8 like when I first opened. And now I'm only open 12 to 6, which I'm sure some people aren't stoked on that. But no one really comes in the morning, and I don't want to close at 6, but like my kids go to bed at 8. Like I need time with my children. So I had to kind of switch to that. But then that also, like you said, opens up opportunities for other things. I need to get out to the Twin Cities more for some of this music. We just had the Gully Boys band come through, and that show was awesome. I really wish we had. Colin Ryan is an exceptional human, and he brings so much to Eau Claire with performances and everything. But we got to figure out a better way to promote these things.
Definitely.
And not that he's not trying, and we're not trying through Converge and everything, but like we're having incredible people come through here that I feel like if people like realized who these people were, the fact that they can come see them in Eau Claire in this small intimate setting that half of these shows are at for the price that they can see them, they wouldn't be sleeping on this. Is ridiculous that we're having the people come through that in other cities people are paying 3 times as much to go to.
And packing venues 3 times as large,
right,
too.
Exactly. It's just like, I don't know how we start to combat that and fix this issue, because it's gonna be an issue unless, like, as Eau Claire continues to get bigger, we're going to be having bigger and bigger people come here. It's obviously growing and all this stuff is happening. We got to figure out a way to like do more with it. We will, but we just got to figure out a way to like get this out more. So talking about figuring out a way to get things more, you're involved with Converge Radio, which the show airs on twice a week, which I'm super grateful for. I mean, I've said it before, but shout out to Converge. I recorded a 10-episode season of my show before I put anything out because I had a little bit of a business mind. And I'm like, well, how you put out a product is just as important as the product itself, or more so, depending on how you want to argue it. I'm going to do this whole 10-episode season. I'm going to edit the whole thing so it's kind of like an album. And then I'm going to give myself a month to figure out what I want to do with it. Like, how am I going to put this out? And I was just kind of like throwing it out to different people, like, what should I do? I wanted to have this music element to it because I recorded it that way. Didn't realize I couldn't do it until my brother-in-law said something after I was done with all of them. I was like, oh no. So I was just kind of like throwing it out to people like, how can I put music in this? And then I had one friend say, well, why don't you just pitch it to Converge? And I was like, but I've never done anything music related. I've never done a talk show. I don't have any connections really in that realm.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, well, but you own a business downtown and you're interviewing local people. Just hit him up. Here's Scott's number. So I hit up Scott Morfitt, who used to be in charge of the station, and sent him a couple episodes. And he listened, and then he pops into my store one day, and he's like, I love it. It's great, blah, 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 blah. You need pop filters, though, and gave them to me out of his backpack. And I was
my God. That seems like very much Scott.
Right. I was like, yeah, thanks, Scott. And so from the very beginning, the first episode ever premiered on Converge, and then it's just like stayed on. And we've been doing it now. It's been more than 3 years of the show, and the show has grown, and Converge has been great, and it's been a really cool relationship. But Converge isn't directly related to Colab, although a lot of it's all the same people in downtown Eau Claire that are doing the creative stuff. Everyone's all kind of together working on stuff anyways. But how did your role come with Converge? Because you do work with us at Converge.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? Are you on the board of directors?
I'm on the board for Converge. So I didn't quite know that I was joining the board when I joined the board, I think.
Sure.
Ed Hudgens, who used to be the board president, kind of as we transitioned out of university affiliation into just our own private nonprofit, asked me if I could come to a meeting. And that was the ask. Just asked if I could come to the meeting because he thought that there was something that I could help with. And then as I was sitting there, I was like, I think this is a board meeting. Does this mean that I'm on the board? Is this how this happens with boards? Because it was my first experience kind of joining a board as a young professional. And afterwards I messaged Ed, I'm like, so am I on the board? And he's like, do you want to be on the board? And then it just kind of happened that way. Sure. So been involved with them ever since. That was late 2020 that I got involved with Converge.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny how different boards work. My first situation of being on a board is I'm on the Parks and Waterways Commission with the city. And mine was I had city council members asking me, like, you should run for city council. And I was like, I don't have time for that, like at all. It's basically not paid with how small of an amount it is. And people don't do it for the pay. But I'm also like a father. I don't have the amount of energy and time that goes into being on city council versus the tiny amount that they get paid. They're doing it as civil servants. Like they are donating a ton of their time, which is part of the problem, in my opinion, without going on a political rant of like, not very many people are able to do that type of a position, even if they wanted to, because the pay is non-existent. So it really limits the people that can even try, which then gives us usually not as diverse of a council as we really should have. And that's part of the problem. That's the only reason that I won't do it. At least at this point. But anyway, so they were like, well, you should do something. And, so you're so involved with like parks, the skate park and stuff, like you're a voice that represents different people. And so I had several of them tell me like, you should really do the Parks and Waterways. I was like, okay, what do I do? And so they, said, fill out this little thing. So I didn't think anything of it because I didn't hear anything back. And it was like, almost a year. It was like a while before all of a sudden I got an email and they're like, yep, you're appointed. I'm like, what?
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, cool. So I did this application. Basically, it goes to like city council, and then they vote on whoever is in the applications. I was probably the only one. Maybe there were more people, but whatever.
Well, they're always looking for people on that committee level, and that's not to discredit you, but just to encourage more people. Like,
totally.
At the city level, you can get involved with local government without being an elected official.
You can be just a random person that lives here. We have a city council member who doesn't own a house here.
Yeah.
So
if you care, get involved.
Anyone that lives here, you can be involved. But anyway, so they appointed me to that. And then they sent me all this paperwork. And I had to like fill out paperwork about a code of conduct and everything, what I can say, what I can't say publicly, and like how I'm supposed to dress and how I'm supposed to do, whatever. And I was like, whoa, well, I am who I am. And I'm very public in this town. And if I say anything, cut me out of this then. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like you want me here and I'll be here, but I'm not going to change what I do. But it was just a funny difference of like, I had to go through all this stuff. It took over a year, and then I had to like sign paperwork about code of conduct and how I dress before I could like sit on this council, which is to me was just like
a little bit backwards. You'd think you'd agree to that up front and then be approved for it.
Rather than... I was like, do you know who I am? Like you agreed to have me on, but have you seen a picture of me? Like, what are you doing? Well, anyways, so Converge, my understanding of Converge is it was at one point donated to the university to be kind of like a teaching tool for broadcasting students and whatever, and it operated out of there as Blue Gold Radio for a long period of time. And eventually it switched from being Blue Gold Radio as a name to Converge Radio, and then it was just operating out of there more so than anything. And then at some point I want to say it was during the pandemic, the university decided they didn't want to continue to do that. It was too expensive or whatever the situation was. They didn't want to continue it. So then Converge had to figure out, well, where do we go? What are we doing? And we had conversations with people. And unfortunately, I mean, me and you had talked and a lot of people talked. We weren't allowed to say what we were going to do because it wasn't locked in yet.
And with like FCC rules, it's really sketchy. If you procure a particular frequency, you can't necessarily be talking about that frequency on another frequency and like directing people to go listen. Yeah. And so we had to be very veiled in how we actually rolled out that new frequency, because we used to be 99.9 and now we're 101.9. Yeah. And so we had to be very careful about how we shifted our listeners over to that, because if you listen to 99.9 now in Eau Claire, it's like Christian rock, Christian country. It's a Christian station. Yeah, very different than the extremely liberal, like local thing. That indie, screamo, like good, everything, diverse mix of music. I mean, just what I play on my show alone is everywhere across the board. So but when we were doing that, we had to kind of push people to the website, which was like, how many people are really going to switch to the website? Well, and we had no one knew what you know what I mean? Like, so how has it gone switching over to this new frequency and getting people to know that you're even there? Like, has it been a huge struggle? Because we don't even really have a way to show how many people are listening at any given time, right? Yeah, the only way that we can really track it is through TuneIn, which if you're not local to Eau Claire, you can listen to Converge Radio on TuneIn, which is an app. It's also streaming on our website. Sure. And that was our stopgap in between the two frequencies was, hey, head to the website and listen on TuneIn. Well, how many people do that? How many people are pulling out open on their web browser and actually listening to it? I don't, outside of my show periodically, I don't think I've ever gone on a website to listen to radio streaming through the internet. It's always in your car. Exactly. So switching over to 101.9, what did we even do to get people to know about it? What have we been trying to do to get people to know about it? Yeah, I mean, mainly a big supporter of us has been the South Barstow Business Improvement District. So right here on South Barstow Street, we control the speaker system. So running messaging about local businesses, running messaging about Converge Radio as a whole. And so gathering some foot traffic that's just kind of naturally listening to it. And every once in a while they hear Jerica say, hey, Converge Radio listeners, as you're walking along the street. So that Cullen's been doing a great job with curating some events, like you mentioned, the Gully Boys concert, and bringing in some big names like that and branding them as Converge Radio Presents concerts. It has also been helpful. We're still, I think the biggest shift for us was when we were under the university, it was more of an advisory board. It was a community advisory board that was really directing kind of the vision of the station. Now it's an operational board where we're actually we're looking at the finances, we're looking at the business plan, we're looking at fundraising and programming and all these things that were kind of not necessarily taken for granted, but were a little bit simpler when we had that overarching organization of the university kind of handling the station as a whole. Yeah. Okay, so where did it move to physically? I thought we had a conversation. It was in Pablo Center or something. I could totally be wrong. Where is it actually operated out of, and what are we able to do now that we weren't able to do before? Yeah, so I don't know that there's much that we are able to do now until we actually purchased or formed the. Sorry, let me take that back. When we absorbed the organization Eau Claire Hometown Radio. Yeah. No, Eau Claire Community Radio. We essentially assumed another board, and they had both a frequency, so 101.9, and a couple of public access television channels. So now Converge is actually a little bit larger. We have the frequency 101.9 that we now own. We've become the board of this other organization that we kind of took over, and we now own a couple public access TV channels. So that's like some added functionality that we have. So like Passion Pod, for example, you do video. Yeah. We could put the video broadcasts of these on local television channels. Well, we should do that. Why have we not done that yet? I think it's mainly a capacity thing. We just haven't we don't have anybody that's on the board currently that's like really ingrained in that video production world and television broadcast world.
Well, and what I think a lot of people don't realize is with a lot of these local type things, they are passion projects. Like a lot of these people don't make any money. If they make money, it's very minimal money. And we're all just kind of doing it because we think it's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that's like, does anyone who works for Converge, is it their full-time job? Anyone?
Not at the moment. Cullen definitely puts in more time than
but that's
he
what I'm
probably
saying
should.
Is the station doesn't even have one paid full-time employee, not even one. To do what we're doing is pretty crazy.
And that's kind of, I think one of the things that taking us out of the university, like Scott was paid by the university when we were there. And now Cullen, the board has to figure out how to pay Cullen.
Right.
And we've got ways to do that, but we'd like to pay Cullen both more and for more time so that he actually is being compensated for all the amazing work that he's doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the short-term goal of the board is figure out our funding sources and really nail those down so that we can really move the station forward, figure out those public access TV channels, really solidify our fundraising drives and what we're doing to actually pay more employees, because there are more opportunities than just a station manager.
Yeah.
And if we can find the funding for those things, I mean, the sky's kind of the limit for what we can do.
Well, it's not going to be long. We're going to be on public radio. I'm going to have a sweet Converge tower, and I'm going to be interviewing celebrities on TV. It's going to be tight.
Yeah.
It's all going to be brought to you by Converge Radio. Well, anyways, getting back to what we're doing. So we are in Colab. This is our second location now. The first one was, where was the first Colab again?
Yeah, just on the street, down Barstow Street, across from like Forage. Or not across from Forage.
Yeah, it was by Ivy.
Yeah.
That's right. I already had forgotten. So, and then we moved in here, but this really is a temporary spot, right? Because Pablo Management, Colab, purchased the old Antique Emporium.
Yeah.
Right? And that is public knowledge, right? So I can talk about it. So they purchased that, and it's going to be pretty incredible. You guys didn't really spare any expense in building this to be a pretty epic spot, considering it's like a temporary location. But tell me about what's to come. Like, what can we say that is on the way?
Yeah. So Antique Emporium, I mean, we're really excited to get working on that building. Renovations have just started. So we've got about 18 months of renovation in that space. And Colab will be on floors 3 and 4. So most of the public here in Eau Claire knows the Antique Emporium as kind of 3 levels that you could get to. So there was the main floor that was full of like the big sculptures and taxidermy and that kind of stuff. Then there was the upstairs and then a mezzanine on that upstairs. So we're the upstairs and the mezzanine. Technically, there's another mezzanine on that first level. And so kind of the plan right now is that Colab is going to be that 3rd and 4th floor space. And so the windows that are on the front of the building that have been covered up for a really long time are going to be opened up. So we'll have a lot of natural light in the really big space that we actually have. Super high ceilings. And so the plan for kind of the front of the space that faces Barstow Street is flexible co-working and event space. So think rehearsal dinners, baby showers, like smaller type events. Wedding dances maybe, but not necessarily a wedding reception because there's not quite enough space for that.
Yeah.
But depending on the functionality of the rest of the building, there could be some potential to accommodate like a wedding in there.
Wow. Okay, cool.
And then the back half of the space will be more prioritized for dedicated workspaces for small teams, individuals, and kind of things like that. So
Sure. Okay, so tell me a little bit about this space. What's the actual square footage of this space? How many people approximately currently are like members of this kind of a space?
Yeah, so we've got about 9,500 square feet of space in here.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah. This room that we're in seats about 50 theater style if you kind of have a speaker up front here and chairs on the backside. We have about 100 members that call Colab home in some capacity or another. And we've actually just started a relationship with the university where any student, faculty, or staff that's working on an entrepreneurial project or working for a local company and needs a space to work out of can get membership here for free.
Oh, cool.
So that's been really great in kind of connecting with university students in hopes that we retain some of that talent here in the Chippewa Valley. Yeah. We see a lot of people graduate, take off to the Twin Cities, take off to Milwaukee, Madison, and we've been seeing now some boomerangs that come back after that.
Yeah.
So let's just try to keep them from the time that they graduate and have them understand that you can build a business here, or you can find a local company to work for and get a good wage and make a living here in Eau Claire. But yeah, about 100 members right now, 9,500 square feet of space. We've got 6 private offices. We've got I believe, 20 or so desks to use, and then 18 dedicated desks. So the dedicated desks are like, Chris has his desk every single day. You leave your microphones, you leave your computer, anything that you want at that desk, and you just return to that workstation every single day.
And what are the hours? Can people just be here whenever, or how does it work?
Yeah, so with our monthly memberships, you can have 24/7 access to the space. We give you a key fob, and that fobs you in either from the parking ramp in the back or down from the Barstow Street doors right in the front.
Gotcha. So what are tell me about a couple people who might not, be upset about having their name just shouted out here on Converge. What are a couple success stories of clients of what their businesses are that they started here and how they've been kind of using the space to grow? Because I know like Toyventive as an example, right, would be one of them. But what are some of the people that you've gotten to meet, build relationships with that are clients here that are operating businesses and doing cool stuff in the area?
Yeah, I mean, I think another big one is the Children's Museum. So Mike, the executive director over at the Children's Museum, originally was using a space at our old office just because he needed another space to get out of the Children's Museum and like actually do some heads down work on things. Yeah. And eventually, as they constructed this location, they didn't really have offices for their team. And so now they're a private office member here and continuing to kind of grow that operation. It's also been a hub for some of their teachers and students while they're waiting for Wi-Fi over at the new location. So it's kind of just been their launch pad and kind of holding space until they actually have the capacity to move the operation fully over to the new building.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the whole idea of sharing has become like more and more popular everywhere in the world. I was in Thailand and I saw co-working spaces everywhere. Yeah. The funny thing is people have this idea when like they need to have an office, which I get it. Like you want to have a space to be able to bring in clients and be professional and all that. But for one, it's really lonely to be in like some tiny little office somewhere by yourself. But the cost of membership here versus what you pay even just for like internet, it doesn't make sense to have your own office the vast majority of the time, even if it's not a one-man operation.
Well, and even just the expense of building out a kitchen, like bringing in a microwave, bringing in a fridge, bringing in a dishwasher if you want that, a coffee maker, all of those things are upfront costs that you're essentially investing in the space that you're in with no definitive reason that you're staying there. And so we have all those things. We provide all those amenities with that monthly membership that you pay. And you don't have to worry about paying your internet bill, paying your electric, paying your water, buying a fridge, cleaning out the fridge, all that kind of stuff. We maintain everything. Our members also do a good job of cleaning up after themselves and kind of roommate rules where, I mean, pick up after yourself and don't be a dick, basically. Right. Yeah. But it's been really cool to watch this community grow and become more connected to one another because especially after COVID and all of us working from home and not having that human connection, now we're all back in the same space again and actually able to motivate one another because there is increased productivity in co-working and people see that. And that's been a big thing that our members have mentioned to us as far as a reason that they stay members is I get more work done here because I see other people working and it motivates me to get work done too.
Yeah. Well, people are always kind of funny about like how networking works. They're like, well, you got to be part of the cool kids club and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, but networking doesn't have to work that way. And
well, and sometimes the cool kids club doesn't look like the people that want to be a part of it.
No, really, it isn't. And it's like going to somewhere that is like a co-working space, not only like do you have all these amenities and everything like that, you have an environment obviously that, promotes you to actually want to work and all that stuff too, but you're naturally around the people you want to network with. Mm-hmm. Especially in like a local business type environment. I always like to say when you work for yourself, especially in a downtown community like Eau Claire, how I feel is that I don't have coworkers, but I feel like all the other local business owners, and not just the business owners, but people like you that are involved in the community things, I feel like you guys are all my coworkers. Because we do end up working together on things all the time. And so if you choose to put yourself in a place like Colab that's like right in the heart of downtown with all these other creatives and all these other people that are working in local things, you're naturally right there top of mind with people. You're meeting the people that you want to meet. You know what I mean?
Well, and we tell people that we like them to consider us, like the Colab staff, myself and Lawrence, as their coworkers or as part of their team. And so if you've got a project that you just want another set of eyes on, throw it on our desk and we're happy to look at it for you and offer any suggestion on it. Or we've had several members that pitch for local pitch competitions like the Idea Challenge or Hatch. And we sit down with them and go through their pitches and kind of refine the story and make sure that everything makes sense. They're hitting main points based on what these competitions are looking for, because we luckily get to attend every single year and kind of see what wins each year.
Sure.
And so not that we have insider knowledge or any influence in that, but we have the ability to help people tell their story in a way that makes more sense for people and is easily digestible in the amount of time that they've got to pitch.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's networking with peers that are like the people that make sense to be networking with and hanging out with and working with, because they understand how it works. We naturally mentor each other. You know, like I don't think I have any mentor, but I know a lot of other people that I have learned things from, such as like J-Flo and I are going to Puerto Rico on Monday, right? Yep. Like I would not consider J-Flo a mentor to me. However, I do think he's really good at things that I'm not. And me working alongside with him on this mural project we're about to work on, I know I'm going to learn a whole bunch of things from him. And I've, you know, on the flip side, I've connected him to have other, you know, works, because his work was there, but people didn't necessarily know about it. They were looking for somebody for art. I knew him and I knew his work and I made the connection. Yep. And it was, you know, everyone won from that. So,
and that's exactly what we're trying to do here, right, is just connect people that should know each other with each other.
Yeah, just be intentional.
Yeah, and it's not like we're trying to tell you that you need to use their services, but maybe they have a piece of information that will help you with something. They've applied for a particular grant, or they've gotten a particular contract that they have some insight into. And not that you're going to get the exact same thing, but they can tell you how they went about getting that.
Yeah, well, it's bringing a bunch of like-minded people that are working in the same general space all to the same place. And one thing that I think everyone needs to remember is the whole idea of your greatness doesn't take away from my greatness. And I think in Eau Claire especially, but here as well, people understand that, and they have that very positive attitude of like, if I help you with this project, that only helps me. You're going to be doing better, which means more people are coming to Eau Claire, which means more people are spending money here, which will help my business, and or we have a good relationship. Now, when you hear about an opportunity, I'm going to be top of mind. We have a relationship. You're going to, like, it's everyone wins, you know? And if your business takes off in 10Xs and mine only goes up 2X, I still went up 2X. Like, that's still great. You know what I mean? So it's really good for everybody. So tell me, before we finish the show here, what are the actual rates? Like, how does the membership work? If somebody from here listens to the show, they're like, I need to come see it. You guys do tours and stuff, I imagine, right?
Yeah.
Like, if somebody has any interest right now in coming to Colab and potentially working here, what are the expectations?
Yeah, I mean, we have everything from a single day rate up to monthly membership. And the day rate is $20 to just drop in for the day. Or you can buy a punch card of 5 punches that don't have to be used consecutively for $75. And so that gives you 5 days. If you're in Eau Claire for 5 days over the next year, you could use them. Or next 2 years, you could use them.
And honestly, if you even just have to print a couple of things and you were going to get coffee anyways, that's what you would have spent. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Our monthly memberships start at $50. We've got a virtual membership where you can incorporate your business, use our address as your address, and we manage your mail. And then you also get to come in for 3 days a month and use 2 hours in a conference room each month. And that's at $50 a month.
That's cheap.
And then all access starts at $120. So $120 a month gets you full access to our co-working space 24/7. You can be in here anytime you want for that flexibility. And then our dedicated desks are $300 a month. So those are your own private workstation. It's a sit-stand desk, so a little bit fancier than the flex desks, with some lockable storage next to it.
Wow. Yeah. No, I mean, really, that is really cheap. If you look into commercial real estate, for one, there's like none available in Eau Claire. It's especially downtown. If you want to be downtown, any spot that is going to be open gets snatched up before it gets listed. It's like a continuous problem right now because everyone wants to be downtown for obvious reasons. Yeah. But this is like kind of a perfect way to be able to get downtown. And honestly, I think even if you just spent, 5 days here a month or whatever, you would end up getting opportunities because of being with the right people that would more than make up for it. And the hardest part, I think, for pretty much anybody I've ever known that's worked for themselves is they don't have a boss that's making sure they're working. If you don't have anyone telling you to do something, it's really easy to not do something. The productivity thing really is important, and being able to be somewhere where okay, I'm going to go from this time to this time and I'm going to work and everyone else is working. I can't really just not do anything because everyone else is doing stuff.
Yep.
It really is like that motivator to do it. And $120 a month, like I said, internet for a business is like, I don't even know what charter charges now. 60 plus.
60, 80.
Yeah,
like that.
just for the internet. So I mean, and even if you just want to do the 1 month or whatever, like I think these types of things people are becoming a little bit more aware of, but I still think the awareness around what this type of a thing is needs to be spread pretty significantly. There's a lot of people that have a bedroom in their house dedicated to their office that is not the best way to be doing it. There's a lot of other options, and then you don't have to invest anything to come here for a day.
Yeah.
$20 is not an investment. You can come, you know what I mean? You can come and see what something like this is and see if it is the right for your business. And people also need to understand when you open a business and when you're doing this type of stuff, results aren't a one-day thing. They're not a one-week thing. You got to put time in. So go in with the expectation of, hey, I'm going to try this membership for 3 months and work really hard. And then I will evaluate after that 3 months to see how things go. And I think a lot of people would be very pleasantly surprised. And I expect something like this as the awareness to grow and as the people who are here become bigger and bigger success stories, that it's gonna pop off. Something like this is just gonna get significantly bigger, and eventually the new space that you guys are building is just gonna be way too small.
That's kind of the hope. Is we kind of want to be bursting at the seams, not uncomfortably so for our members, but we do want to show that there is value in co-working and that the model works to grow and scale your business, because it's something that you can do right here in Eau Claire. You don't have to move to one of the big metro areas around us. You can do it in Eau Claire, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper here.
People are figuring that out from just virtual meetings alone.
Yeah.
That's why everyone's flocking away from big cities, is you don't need to be there anymore. You can have virtual meetings for the vast majority of things if you have to have meetings, which you don't have that often anyways. And when you have to have something in person, Minneapolis is not far away.
Yeah.
It really isn't. There's people who commute there every day, which blows my mind. But like, even if you commuted once a month, it would be really no big deal, which is part of the draw of why Eau Claire is so rad. Unfortunately, like, our costs are going up too, but still.
Yeah. Well, and one nice thing that we've seen, especially around the holidays, is people in town visiting family, or they're in town not on a holiday because mom or dad is having a surgery and they need to just take care of them for a week.
Right.
And so they come back and they're like, I think I might actually be able to come vacation here now, because I work remotely. I can work from anywhere, and I can actually work here. Yeah. I can't work at home.
Yeah.
Because I'm constantly being distracted. I'm constantly being pulled away from my work. So I can separate my fun time with my family and actually get to spend some time with them, and then dedicate my days to working and take a longer amount of time off from work than I would have kind of expected.
Yeah, I mean, if you're intentional with your time, you can get twice as much work done in half the time. You really can.
Definitely.
I mean, I've figured that out myself. If my kids are around, I can't get anything done. It takes forever because they're constantly distracting. If I don't have any distractions and I'm focused, I can get a lot done in way less than 8 hours. Well, anyways, I don't want this to go on for 8 hours. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being a part of the show. I appreciate everything you do in Eau Claire. I'm really glad that we have, and it's not just you, but we have a lot of really, really cool individuals in Eau Claire that do a lot just because they want Eau Claire to be cool, such as Colin Ryan, such as Ed, such as you. And there's a lot of people that are involved that do stuff, but you're definitely one of them. I consider myself one of them too. I try really hard, but we have a lot of really cool people that are doing a lot of really cool things that people don't realize they're not getting paid for. They're just doing them because they want Eau Claire to be cool. So I encourage anyone that's listening, if you like the things that are happening in Eau Claire, you can absolutely get involved, and we would love to give you some work to do, because there's a lot we're trying to do, and it's really hard to do all of it by ourselves. And
you often see the same faces in in different meetings about different things.
Yeah.
And those people are often getting stretched far too thin. And so things either aren't as impactful as they could be with a little bit more power behind them, a little bit more people power behind them, or they don't happen at all because there isn't a person to kind of take that project on. So if you're hungry and looking for something to do to make Eau Claire better, come on over. We've got plenty of opportunities.
Oh yeah, and those opportunities will lead to other opportunities that likely can be a career anyways, because there's going to be positions opening as all of this grows.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.